Greetings and welcome to the New Black Media, where we bring you the excellence in news. I offer you the fair use disclaimer. This video is used for educational purposes only. So today's video is about Joy Ann Reid from the Readout on MSNBC. She has been slammed for demanding a tax on the unvaccinated. That's right. She's asking the government, if you will, to tax the unvaccinated. So Miss Ann Reid, has called for people who have chosen to remain unvaccinated to pay more tax as a result of their health care choice. She says, I feel like people who are willfully unvaccinated, fine, don't get vaccinated, but they need to start to pay a little bit more of the cost of what this is doing to our system. Reid, 52, then went on to reference how other countries around the world are reacting to those who have refused to get the vid vaccination. Well, Miss Joy Ann Reid, let me state that what about those who we find out who are vaccinated that are causing the strain on our healthcare system? Are you going to pay extra taxes? See, while you want people to go along with your idea as you think it's sound, we've come to find out the science is incorrect. In fact, people who are fully vaxxed are getting infected. This makes no sense why you and others are pushing for people to get it. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court has ruled they're not going to go along with the mandate. They've only mandated healthcare workers to get the vaccination. So that should tell you something too, Miss Ann Reid. But I digress. So the idea of a tax on the unvaccinated did not sit well with users. Of course not. One person wrote, "Oh Joy, you may want to think this one through for once." While another wrote, "You know what? Come to my house and try to tax my freedom," added user Jeff Little. That's right, Miss Joy Ann Reid, Miss Ann, Auntie Mammy, you even have suspected white supremacists out here threatening you to come to their house and try to tax their freedom. So she goes on to say, I'm sorry, there's other people out here who agree with Ann Reid. Joy Ann Reid, that is. This person says, I agree with this. It's the person's right to decide whether to be vaccinated, period. But if it is demonstrated that the vast majority of vid hospitalizations are attributable to unvaccinated citizens, then they should foot more of the costs of such treatments, wrote Brian Greene. Well, Mr. Greene, let me state that, like I said earlier, and I'm going to state it again, yet, if these vid hospitalizations are attributed to the vaccinated citizens, because after all, that's what we're seeing, a lot of infected people, they are in fact vaccinated. They've had their boosters and all. We're seeing a number of cases, as a matter of fact, unfold right before our very eyes, where it proved, or rather disproved, their science. But I digress. But Brian Greene, if it's proven that the vaccinated citizens are the problem, are you willing to shell out more taxes? I'm curious because there's loud mouths like you and Joy, and Reid, who say these outlandish things, but you end up putting your foot in your mouth because you realize that you don't want that to happen to you if it's proven the other way around. And that's my point in this video. By the way, please give this video a thumbs up to the new black media. We bring you the excellence in news. So, continuing on, it goes on to say, as in the US, vaccinations are not compulsory, but German authorities have been taking measures that make it increasingly inconvenient to be unvaccinated. For example, COVID-19 tests required to dine indoors at restaurants are no longer free of charge. Also, some German states are allowing businesses such as restaurants or sports stadiums to choose whether to admit people with negative tests or only those who have been vaccinated or have recently recovered from the COVID-19. Well, while we're on that point, let me state for the record that you indoor restaurants and other places like stadiums and so on and so forth that decide that you don't want to allow those who are unvaccinated, guess who loses out? You do. That's right. You don't get the money. You don't get the bag. You are the one who loses out. You need us more than we need you. Stop taking that arrogant stance like it's the other way around. Because any restaurant these days who shuts their doors on customers, well, you obviously don't want to be in business too long, do you? It just doesn't make sense. But you guys are trying to make it make sense, but it doesn't. So, you can take that arrogant stance if you want to, but it's us, the people, we the people that you need to dine at your restaurants, to patronize your restaurants. So I'd back that up if I was you. I would take a few steps back and maybe think about that, Miss Ann Reid. I mean, Joy Reid, that is. But I digress. During her program, Reid spoke with MSNBC medical contributor Dr. Lippy Roy, who did not say unvaccinated people should be denied medical care, but argued that they could be put on a separate triage list that would result in them only getting, quote, a certain type of care. Now, can you believe that? That a doctor would say something like that. You would expect for someone not having much sense, like an adolescent, to say something so dumb, something so slow, something so backwards. In fact, I'd venture on to say that that's medical racism. That you're going to decide on treating people like dogs if they don't get what you want them to get. That's medical racism, if you ask me. Again, if you can, please give this video a like, if you will. I'd appreciate it. So, moving on, Roy said she is not giving up on the unvaccinated yet. Sadly, I'm aware of what's happening to hospitals and healthcare facilities all over the world. Hospitalizations in the United States increased 30% this past week, Roy said. Well, Miss Ann Reid, Joy Ann Reid, as I stated earlier, don't you find it a coincidence that this 30% increase happened after so many of you got your vax? What a coincidence. And what a coincidence that you had to go back and change the terminology of what a vaccine really is. You had to change that to fit your narrative. But you know about this too, don't you, Miss Reid? You should be an Miss Ann Reid continues on with more fear mongering by stating that, and it's and what's happening is that this atrocious strain on hospitals and medical facilities is resulting in hospitals being short staffed, doctors, nurses getting infected themselves. Now, on that point, Miss Joy Ann Reid, why are they being infected themselves when they're fully vaccinated? Did you ask yourself that question? How is it that they're being infected themselves? When we know that healthcare workers are some of the frontline folks that were supposed to be fully vaccinated from the gate. You're putting your foot in your mouth, Miss Reid. Nothing you're stating is making sense, Miss Reid. But let me end this off. It continues by saying there are many possible interventions that we can impose on the people who continue to choose to be unvaccinated, like increased insurance premiums and creating a list or triage list, as I mentioned earlier. So when people come to the hospital, maybe one of the first questions asked is, are you vaccinated? And then that will direct them towards a certain type of care. Well, I'm going to close off like this. I think that's BS. And Joy Ann Reid, shame on you for suggesting something so foul and so uncivilized, even, if you will, on the majority of your fellow Americans. I can't support you or who you stand for. I can't support your platform, what you stand for. That's horrible. I wonder if you're a Christian. Anyways, this is the New Black Media, where we bring you the excellence in news. Hopefully you think about some of the things I've mentioned in this broadcast. New Black Media.